In this video, we want to look specifically at how to do homework, quizzes, and tests in MyLab Plus. So let's go straight to the homework button. And our list of problems comes up, list of homework sets. I want to go to section 2.4. This is a homework assignment that you'll be doing eventually. Now, you see question 1 has a green check beside it. When you do homework and save your results and return at a later time, anything that you've done will be saved. Anything that was correct will have a green check. So let's say we've already done problem 1, and we'll start up with question 2. So we just click on the link for question 2. The problem window pops up. Now, here's a factoring problem that we might have done in intermediate algebra or possibly basic algebra before that. Make sure you read the instructions. MyMathLab is fussy about how answers are typed in. It's very specific. It's not as forgiving as a human grader. So you do have to read the instructions and make sure you type in the answers in the format it says. So for example, if this equation does have two solutions, I'm supposed to type them in the box separating the two answers by a comma. Now, I want to show you what happens if you miss a question. Let's suppose I think the answers are 4 and 5. So I type in my answer, I come down and click the check answer button. Not correct. So I get a second chance. I can modify the answer. Let's say I think it's 4 and 6. Click on check answer, still wrong. Let's say I think it's 4 and 7. You notice now the button that was check is now final check. So I'm getting 3 chances to answer this question correctly. When I click the final check button, it tells me the correct answer. And when I click done, now the button I see at the bottom of the problem window is similar exercise. Now when I click on the similar exercise button, I get another question very similar to the one I just did. Just the numbers have changed. In this way, you really do have an unlimited number of times to attempt each question. What you really get is 3 tries for each instance of the problem, and after you've exhausted those 3 tries, you just get a new version of the problem. Now, I want to go back to question 1 for a moment. This is a question, let's say, that you've already done. You've got the correct answer. When you exited after doing that problem, you always click the save, so you did the save. This button says similar exercise, so if I click on that, it's going to let me redo this problem. Now, from what you remember about factoring, you should realize that this polynomial on the left side of the equation factors as x minus 5 times x plus 4, which means my two solutions are 5 and negative 4. But let's say I type in 4 instead, and I click check answer. Well, it's wrong, so I know I'll get another chance. I click check answer again. Still wrong because I didn't change the answer I had. Now it changes to final check. Let's say I leave the 5 and the 4 there. I click final check. I know the answer is wrong, and it's asking me, which grade do I want to keep? Do I want to save the 100% that I had when I did the question correctly, or do I want to save this new attempt where I've missed it completely? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. Save the best score will not change the result that you already had. So what's the purpose of all this? Well, of course, it's to practice problems for exams and for quizzes. If this is a problem I got right, that is question number 1, but I know I need practice with it. Let's say I can't do it quickly and I'm not very confident about how I'm doing it. I can go back and do this problem over and over again. Every time I hit the similar exercise button, it'll regenerate the numbers so that I can do that same kind of problem over and over again as much as I need to get the concept or the skill down. Okay, so now we're redoing the problem again. I know this factors as x minus 5 times x plus 2, so my answer should be 5 and negative 2. I check the answer. It's correct. There's no need for me to answer a question about which grade should I keep because it's still 100%. This means that when you complete a homework assignment, there are times you may want to go back and do some of the questions or maybe all of the questions for practice. Alright, now that kind of explains how you type in answers, how they're recorded in terms of the grading. The other thing I'd like to point out while we're in the work window here is these buttons over on the right side. Every question will have a combination of buttons. The print button is over here. That allows you to print out the problem you're working on. The Ask My Instructor button is a good button for you to use. If you click on that, it pulls up this window. It's automatically going to email it to my school address, and all you need to do in this box below is type in your message to me. Be as specific as you can. Tell me what the problem is, perhaps what you've tried, what the roadblock is you're hitting. And the really nice thing about this is when you hit send, I'll get your message, and inside that message I'll also get a link to the problem. When I click on that active link, I'll be able to see the answer you typed in, and by looking at the kind of answer you entered, I may be able to have some idea about what you might have done. This is also important because for a particular question, 20 students may have 20 different problems. They generate differently for every different student every time that question is launched. So for me to answer your question promptly using this way of sending the problem to me is really the best way for me to see quickly what the exact problem was that you were working on. Alright, let me close out that window. The textbook button will just take you to that section of the textbook that relates to the problem you're working on. The video button will take you to the video lecture where the topic that's being covered here was presented. Now, not every problem will have a video button. Some problems will have animation buttons. Some problems will have PowerPoint buttons. The media resources we talked about in the first video will all be available in this menu on the right. So if there is a video button, that means there is a video lecture that is associated with this question. Now finally, to help me solve this, if I click on this button for this problem, it's going to tell me something about how I might try to solve this equation. And after I read that and hit continue, it will walk me through a solution of the problem. I do have to do some work. I have to follow the instructions. The program is going to try to lead me through the steps that it will take to find the answer. So for example, with this one, it's wanting me to type in x minus 5 times x plus 2. I'll check. That's correct. Now it explains what I'm going to do next, and when I hit continue, it shows me a little bit more. And then when I hit continue, it finally wants the solutions based on the hint it's given you here. Well, of course, I know that's 5 and negative 2. Okay, now in this particular case, he's being very fussy. He wants negative 2 in this first one, because that's the answer I get from this first equation. So when I check, I'm good to go. Now when I hit continue and close, I'm back to the problem, and I can hit similar exercise and redo the problem, and hopefully this time do a little bit better because I've figured out a little bit more about how to do this problem. Now let me close this window. That's pretty much all there is to doing homework. Obviously, you're not under as much pressure since you're free to do these as many times as you need to. So, for most students, getting a 100% on every homework assignment is really pretty attainable. You just have to stick with it and keep working at it. What's more difficult are the quizzes and obviously the exams. Now, I will talk to you more about how to do an exam once we get closer to our first exam, but it really is much like doing a quiz, just the quiz is a smaller version. So let me click on Sample Quiz, and you'll see that the first page that comes up, the first window that comes up, it's a bit different from what you saw when you were doing homework. There are 3 questions. It tells you that you have 30 minutes left. It says that you have 2 attempts and you haven't done any of your attempts yet. You click I am ready to start, and that will start the timer. Once you start the quiz or the exam, you can't pause it, you can't leave, you have to finish it in one setting. Now, I did explain in the syllabus that if you run into technical difficulties, you can always contact me. I have certain criteria by which I'll let you back into a quiz or a test. But really, once you get the hang of it, I don't think you'll be experiencing too many technical difficulties. So I'll click on I'm ready to start, and I'm in the quiz. And you can see the format of the work window is much the same as what you saw when you were doing homework. Here's the bar where I can scroll from question to question. Now, you don't have to do question number 1 first. You can actually jump around. But if I did start with question 1, I would type in my answer. So in this case, it's asking me to solve this equation for p. So I'm going to come over here and type in p equals a over pi. You notice I had to go to the symbol palette under the More button to get to the symbol pi. S, and then I'm going to use this button to get the square on the S. So p equals a over pi s squared. Next question. Now, notice that there is no check button. This is a quiz, so you won't know if you're right until you submit the quiz. Warning, very important, as you're working your way through the quiz, do not click on the Submit Quiz button. When you click that button, you are turning in the quiz, and it's final. As you're advancing through the questions, you should only be using the previous question or next question buttons, or by simply pressing the circles up here to get from question to question. Question 2, very similar. Let's type in our answer quickly for that. So we know the answer, if we're solving for z here, would be h over p. Let's suppose I type in h over capital P. Well, that's going to be wrong because it is case sensitive. Lowercase p is a different variable than uppercase p. Of course, it's not going to tell me that right now. I'll go to next question. And so now I get to a simplify the given algebraic expression problem. So let's type in our answer quickly for that. I know I have 48y minus 5y. That would be 43y. I have 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. Minus 3 would be minus 21. So my answer should be 43y minus 21. Now I'm at the end of the quiz, so if I'm pretty satisfied with what I've got, I'll hit Submit Quiz. Obviously, one of the advantages of this is that I'll know exactly what the results are immediately. 3 questions and I've missed one. Now, when you do complete a quiz, especially since you have 2 attempts for each quiz that you're going to have, you should go back and review the quiz. Now, the best piece of advice I could give you is, if you're going to attempt the quiz a second time, don't do it immediately. Take the time to review the topics. If the mistake was a simple one, as in typing in uppercase P instead of lowercase p, and you really know what you're doing, then you should probably just go ahead and do the quiz immediately. But if you miss questions because you really don't know what you're doing, don't repeat the quiz immediately. Take the time to go back and study, figure out what you're doing, then come back and do the quiz. I can review the test by clicking the Review Test button. And it comes up. I can look at each question. It's showing me what I typed in. Well, actually, it shows you what you should have typed in. When you roll over it, it shows you what you entered. Now, I will point out one thing about this type of entry. If this happens to you, for instance, if you type in an uppercase P instead of a lowercase p, well, if you were to email me about this quiz, and you said I simply typed in an uppercase P instead of a lowercase p, then I could go back and change the grade manually, and I would do that for this particular problem. Now, obviously, if the equation had both lowercase and uppercase p's in there, and you typed in uppercase P, I would not give you credit for that. So it is a bit subjective, and it's going to be based on essentially my good judgment. But if you feel that you've missed a problem by just making a typographical error, there was a slip of your finger on the keyboard, email me and let me know. I'll review it, and I can manually change the grade. Of course, that is going to require that you go back through the quiz and review your answers to figure out what you did wrong. If I close and go back to the quizzes and tests, I'll just hit that button to refresh the window. Then when it comes back up, there sits my sample quiz, and you can see that it shows I've done one of my 2 allowed attempts. And if I click on the C score button, okay, it should say 66 2/3 there. I'll have to adjust that. I've got it hidden right now. Once I make that adjustment, it would show your score. And of course, since you have another attempt, now's when you could go back when you're ready and do the quiz again. It will be the same quiz, except obviously various parameters will be changed. Numbers will be changed, formats will be changed a bit, but they really are the same questions. Okay, hopefully this will get you going on how to do homework and quizzes. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. Please feel free to contact me, but I really think that for most students, once you dig in and get going, how to do things in this system comes pretty quickly. So good luck, and get back to me with any questions you've got, and start as soon as you can on the homework.